Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Phil Andrews. We warmly welcome the family of Private William Joseph Foster, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome the delegation representing the Army Indigenous Pre-Recruitment Program attending this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and their families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family as well as visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private William Joseph Foster. William Joseph Foster was born in Sydney on the 30th of July 1918, the only child of William and Rose Foster. Known as Titch to his family and friends, Foster grew up near Sydney's inner west, and at the time of his enlistment was living in Glebe Point and working as a salesman. He was known as a fine sportsman, and before the war gained a useful military and medical experience by serving in the 14th Field Ambulance, a local militia unit. Foster enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 6th of June 1940 at the Engineers Depot at Moore Park. He was taken on strength of the 5th Australian General Hospital and began training at the camp at Greta near Maitland, New South Wales. On the 19th of October 1940, he moved with his unit onto the transport ship Queen Mary, and the following day embarked from Sydney for service overseas. He arrived at the Suez Canal in Egypt in November and worked with his unit to establish the 5th Australian General Hospital at Kiefer Bilou near Gaza in Palestine. From this time until April 1941, Foster worked at the General Hospital and spent time attached to the 2-second casualty clearing station, which provided vital medical treatment for soldiers close to the fighting. On the 10th of April 1941, Foster and the 5th Australian General Hospital transferred to Ikali near Athens in Greece to provide medical assistance for soldiers wounded in the fighting against German and Italian forces there. The Rapid Access Advance forced Allied authorities to begin evacuating medical staff and wounded soldiers, but a large number of soldiers were in too serious a condition to be moved. Foster was one of over 150 Allied medical staff who volunteered to stay at the hospital to protect the hospital patients, in the full knowledge that they were risking their lives and were likely to be taken as prisoners of war. In the chaos of the Axis advance, Foster was originally reported as missing in action, but in June 1941 was confirmed to be a prisoner of the Germans. During his captivity, he continued to serve in a medical role, first at the Allied prisoner of war camp at Kokonia and later in camps in Poland and Germany. Despite the hardships, Foster was able to continue to show his sporting ability and competed in games against other prisoners. The records indicate that he excelled in rugby, cricket, basketball, athletics, and quoits. In early 1945, as Allied forces pushed the Germans back towards Berlin, Foster transferred to the hospital at Hohenstein-Anstalt, southwest of Dresden in Germany. While there, he treated soldiers from both sides of the conflict. On the 14th of April 1945, his hospital camp was liberated by the American troops, and Foster was finally free after 4 long years in captivity. However, not long after his release, Foster volunteered to come to the medical aid of some German soldiers wounded in nearby fighting. He and a small number of Allied medical personnel set out to the rescue in 2 commandeered German ambulances. As they neared the wounded soldiers, they come under the fire from an American tank who mistook them for enemy troops. Foster died of his wounds shortly afterwards. He was 26 years old. He was killed less than a month before the end of the Second World War in Europe. One account of Foster's death stated that he was killed while upholding one of the highest traditions of the service, attending to the wounded on the field of battle, whether they be friend or foe. Private Ralph A. Johnson of Foster's unit later wrote that hearing of Foster's death was one of the saddest days of the war for him, and that the brave act was the sort of thing you would expect from Titch. Foster was posthumously mentioned in dispatches for his bravery and devotion to service. He now lies in the Nederwurst War Cemetery in the Netherlands, where over 350 casualties of the Second World War are commemorated. His gravestone carries the simple epitaph, RIP. His name is listed on the roll of honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Joseph Foster, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.